$600,000. That's the number where the math of your money quietly changes direction, and almost nobody tells you it happens. Here's the strange part. Your brain hears $600,000 and files it under not enough. Not enough to retire, not enough to relax, not enough to stop grinding, and it's not your fault. Your brain has been trained on the $1 million myth. In 2024, Northwestern Mutual asked Americans how much they need to retire comfortably, and the average answer came back at $1.46 million. Charles Schwab ran the same exercise that year and got $1.8 million. Those numbers get repeated so often they've become folklore. Now hold the folklore against reality. The median American household net worth, per the most recent Census Bureau data, is $204,900. The line where you enter the top 25% of households starts at $672,700. So the target the average person believes in $1.5 million is more than 7 times what the median household actually has, and well above where the richest quarter of the country even begins. Either the entire country is doomed, or the target is wrong. I've spent more than 10 years running my own business, sitting in rooms with accountants and fiscal lawyers, watching how money actually moves, and I can tell you which one it is. The target is wrong. Or more precisely, the target was never built for you. It was built for the people who profit from you chasing it. That's the brain problem on the table. Because this channel exists for one reason. Most financial mistakes aren't math problems, they're brain problems. Your brain compares 600,000 against a mythical million and concludes, you're behind. Meanwhile, the actual math, what this portfolio generates, what it survives, what it unlocks, says you're standing at a threshold where everything genuinely flips. The gap between the feeling and the number is where people make their most expensive decisions. So here's where we're going. First, the income question. What $600,000 actually pays you once you stack it with Social Security and the newest withdrawal research, not the recycled stuff. Second, the incentive question. Why the financial industry needs you to believe it's not enough. And that's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fee schedule. Third, the question nobody warns you about the psychological flip at this threshold, where the instincts that got you here become the instincts that can wreck you. If you're new here, this is what I do. I read the boring filings and the census data so you don't have to. Subscribe if you want the numbers without the sales pitch. One honest caveat before we start. $600,000 is not a magic wand. It doesn't fund a lavish lifestyle, and it doesn't work identically for everyone. But it is a real, measurable line where 3 things change: what your money earns relative to you, how dangerous a crash actually becomes, and what your brain starts doing to sabotage both. Let's start with the number nobody argues, with what $600,000 actually does in a normal year. The number is 7%. That's the long-term real return of the S&P 500 after inflation. Behind it sit 10.2% nominal growth per year going back to 1928, minus average inflation of about 3.1%. I only ever use the real figure because the nominal one is a vanity metric. Your portfolio can grow 10%, while a third of that growth gets eaten by everything around you, getting more expensive. 7% is what actually lands in your life. Now apply it to $600,000. 7% of $600,000 is $42,000. One average year, dividends reinvested, no drama, no genius. Stock picks, $42,000 appears in your account. Here's the framing that should stop you cold. The Bureau of Labor Statistics puts median earnings for a full-time American worker at $59,384 a year before taxes. That's a human being showing up 40 hours a week, commuting, sitting in meetings, answering to a manager. Your $600,000 in a normal year earns close to what that person earns without waking up at 6:30, without asking permission for vacation, without a performance review. Your money has quietly become a worker, one that never sleeps, never quits, and gives itself a raise every single year. That's the first thing that changes at this number. Not the size of the account, the relationship between you and the account. Up to this point, you were the engine. The biggest force pushing your net worth forward was your paycheck, your savings rate, your discipline at the end of the month. The portfolio was a passenger. There's a clean way to find the exact moment the passenger becomes the engine, and the math is almost insulting. Take what you save per year and multiply it by 14. That's roughly the portfolio size where an average market year generates more than your annual contribution, because 7% of your balance equals your savings, right around 14 times that savings figure. Trivial algebra, enormous consequences. Run it for real people. Saving $15,000 a year genuinely strong by national standards, your crossover point sits around $214,000. Past that, the market contributes more to your growth than you do. Saving $30,000 a year, which usually means a solid dual income household being very deliberate, you cross at about $428,000. And if you're a high earner, $280,000 a year in household income, saving 15% of it, $42,000 annually, your crossover lands at almost exactly $600,000. That's why this number matters and why it isn't magic. $600,000 is the switch point for a very strong saver. It's the balance where even someone doing nearly everything right, top tier income, real discipline, 4-figure monthly contributions can no longer outsave their own portfolio. The best saver in the country at this level becomes the second best worker in their own household. First place goes to the money. Below the switch, your savings rate is the whole story. At $100,000, your $1,500 a month moves the needle more than any market year will. Skipping it costs you. Optimizing it pays you. And your effort and your results stay tightly linked. That's a comfortable, controllable world. Above the switch, the link snaps. Your contribution becomes a rounding error against what the balance does on its own. Skip a month of saving and a good market week hands it back. Have your most disciplined year ever, and one bad quarter erases all of it, plus more. The variable that decided everything for 15 or 20 years, how much you put in, stops deciding your outcome. What decides it now is what the market does and what you do in response. Notice I said what you do, not what you earn, not what you save, what you do. At $600,000, your behavior becomes the highest leverage financial variable you control. And that's exactly where things get dangerous, because the same math that makes the gains bigger makes the losses feel lethal. Since 1928, the American stock market has gone through 27 or 28 bear markets, declines of 20% or more, with the average one falling about 35% from peak to trough. They show up roughly every 4 to 6 years, depending on how you count, which means that over any 30-year retirement, you should expect somewhere between 5 and 8 of them, not as a possibility, as a schedule. Now here's where your brain betrays you again, and this time it works in the opposite direction. A 35% decline is a percentage. Percentages are abstract, bloodless, easy to hold. But your brain doesn't think in percentages, it thinks in dollars. So run the same crash on 2 different people. The person with 60,000 invested watches, $21,000 vanish on paper. Painful, but survivable. It's a used car. The person with 600,000 watches, $210,000 vanish. Same percentage, same crash, same calendar, but $210,000 is a house. It's the entire working decade of their 30s, gone in a spreadsheet. They feel minus $210,000. And that very specific, very physical feeling is what makes a person who did everything right for 20 years do something catastrophically stupid in a single afternoon. Sell everything, go to cash. Wait for things to calm down. Every one of those phrases is the dollar figure talking, not the math. But the crash itself isn't even the worst part. The worst part is a mechanism most people have never heard of. And it's the single largest threat to a $600,000 portfolio that has started paying you an income. It's called sequence of returns risk, and here's how it works. Say you retire, and in your very first year, the market drops 20%. Your $600,000 is now $480,000. Markets drop, they recover, you've read the history. Except you still need to live, so you withdraw your planned $24,000. Now look at what actually happened. You didn't withdraw 4% of your portfolio. You sold $24,000 out of a $480,000 base, an effective withdrawal rate of 5%, taken from a portfolio that now has to climb back with less money in it. The same withdrawal at the top and after a crash are not the same withdrawal. The second one scars the portfolio permanently, because the shares you sold at the bottom are not there for the recovery. Do that 2 or 3 times in the first 5 years of retirement, and you can go broke in a scenario where the average annual return was perfectly acceptable. The average doesn't save you. The order of the returns does. And I find the design of this trap genuinely dark. The moment in your life when you have the most money you've ever had and therefore the most to lose is also the exact moment your income depends on it and your nerve is at its weakest. Beautiful in the worst way. The fix, fortunately, is boring. You keep a cash buffer 1 to 2 years of your planned withdrawals, somewhere between $18,000 and $36,000, sitting outside the market. When a drawdown hits, you spend the cash and leave the portfolio alone. You never sell a single share at the bottom because you never have to. Holding that much cash, earning almost nothing, feels wasteful. It isn't. That buffer isn't an investment, it's insurance against your own forced stupidity. Which raises the real question underneath all of this: how much does this portfolio actually need to pay you? Time to run the income math nobody shows you. Start with the rule everyone quotes and almost nobody has ever seen the receipt for. In 1994, a financial advisor named William Bengen sat down with every piece of market data from 1926 to 1992, the Great Depression, the stagflation, 70s, every war, every crash, and asked a brutal question. What withdrawal rate would have survived every single 30-year retirement in that window? His answer was 4%. Pull 4% of your starting balance in year one, adjust for inflation after that, and historically, the portfolio lasted the